The Bell Witch House, a curse that spans centuries. If you visit Adams, Tennessee, you'll see a peaceful little town with old houses, open fields, and fresh air. But don't let this tranquility deceive you. The locals here have grown accustomed to whispers of warning. And if you ask them about the Bell Witch House, their faces will pale with fear. In the early 19th century, the Bell family moved to Tennessee, hoping to start a new life. Little did they know, the land they purchased had belonged to Kate Batts, a woman accused of being a witch, who had cursed it before she died. Enraged by the unfair treatment she suffered, Kate vowed that her spirit would seek revenge for generations to come. The Bell family experienced years of torment, from unexplained noises to apparitions, and even the mysterious death of their patriarch, John Bell. Over time, the legend faded, but the curse never did. 2 centuries later, a young couple, Lucas and Anna, decided to move to Adams and start a homestay on the very land once owned by the Bell family. Enthralled by its history, they dismissed the warnings and saw only an opportunity. For the first few days, everything seemed normal, until they discovered large handprints on the walls and deep scratches on the wooden floors, as if someone had clung to them for a long time. At night, they heard faint whispers, which they attributed to the wind. But then the whispers became voices, and the voices began calling their names. Anna began to feel watched. Even when she was alone in broad daylight, she would catch glimpses of a shadowy figure standing just out of reach of her peripheral vision. Each time she turned to look directly at it, the figure would be gone. One evening, while Lucas was in the basement fixing an old pipe, he felt something brush past him. He turned, expecting to see Anna, but no one was there. The air grew cold, and he saw his breath fog up in front of him. A sudden, loud knock on the basement door made him jump. But when he opened it, there was nothing but darkness. Meanwhile, Anna found herself drawn to an old rocking chair in the living room, which would often move on its own. She was convinced it was just the uneven flooring. But then, one night, she saw it rocking violently while an invisible force seemed to push it back and forth. Lucas started noticing strange behavior from Anna. She would wake up in the middle of the night and walk aimlessly through the house, whispering unintelligible words. When he shook her awake, she would have no recollection of what had happened. One night, he found her standing outside in the backyard, barefoot in the cold, staring at the woods behind the house. As the days passed, more unexplained events occurred. Doors would slam shut on their own, mirrors would fog up with cryptic messages, and objects would vanish only to reappear in the most unexpected places. Anna found a locket on her bedside table one morning, with initials she didn't recognize. It wasn't hers, nor had she ever seen it before. Lucas, growing increasingly uneasy, began hearing his name being whispered in his ear, even when he was alone. One night, as he lay in bed, he felt a hand slowly caress his face, only to wake up and find Anna sound asleep beside him. The next morning, she told him she had dreamed of an old woman standing over them, her bony fingers tracing his cheek. Determined to uncover the truth, Anna searched through the house and eventually found an old wooden box beneath the floorboards. Inside was a tattered leather-bound journal, filled with frantic scrawls from someone who had lived there long before. The journal belonged to a woman named Margaret Bell, who wrote about her sleepless nights, plagued by whispers and visions of a spectral figure watching her from the shadows. Margaret had described an event where her husband vanished in the middle of the night, leaving only his boots at the doorstep. She had begged for help, but no one in town dared to approach the house. Her final entry read, "I can hear her now. She stands outside my door, whispering my name. I fear I am next. If you read this, leave before it is too late." Lucas and Anna, now terrified, decided to stay up for the night and record any activity they might witness. They set up a camera in the living room, another in the basement, and one outside near the tree line where Anna often stared blankly. At exactly 3:15 a.m., a chill spread through the room, and the candle they had lit flickered violently before going out. The air thickened, and the whispers returned, this time forming coherent words. "You took what was mine. Now I take what is yours." The temperature plummeted, and the room darkened unnaturally. A shadowy figure emerged from the corner of the room, a woman with hollow eyes, her mouth moving as if speaking, though no sound came out. The air felt suffocating, pressing down on them with an unseen force. Anna screamed as the apparition lunged forward. Lucas grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the door, but it slammed shut on its own. They were trapped. From the basement, the sound of scratching against wood grew louder, as if something were trying to claw its way out. The camera set up in the room toppled over, capturing a momentary glimpse of a dark, hunched figure crawling out of the shadows. Lucas and Anna pounded against the locked door, their voices swallowed by the darkness. The whispers became a chorus of voices, overlapping each other in a twisted melody. The last thing Lucas saw before everything went black was the figure reaching out for him, its gnarled fingers inches from his throat. In a desperate attempt, Lucas hurled the journal into the fireplace, hoping to sever the connection between them and the entity. As the pages burned, the figure let out an ear-piercing shriek before vanishing into the darkness. The room returned to silence, and the oppressive weight lifted. Knowing they could never stay another night, Lucas and Anna packed their belongings and left before dawn. They never spoke about what they had seen, but as they drove away, Anna glanced at the rearview mirror and saw the faint silhouette of a woman standing in the upstairs window. Watching them leave, they had escaped, but the curse remained. Months later, a new family moved into the house. Unaware of its history, the neighbors watched from a distance, knowing that it was only a matter of time before the cycle repeated. Late one night, the new homeowners heard soft whispers outside their bedroom door. They ignored it at first, thinking it was just the wind, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. A shadow appeared at the foot of their bed, watching them as they slept. The Bell Witch never left, and she never will. Apartment 14 whispers from the abyss. When I received the offer to rent apartment 14 in an old downtown complex, I signed the contract without hesitation. The rent was suspiciously low, but I wasn't superstitious. I simply thought I had found a great deal. However, the moment I set foot in the apartment, a chilling sensation crawled up my spine, as if the place had never truly welcomed human presence. The apartment was eerily empty, with peeling walls and a dim, flickering light that cast ominous shadows. From the very first moment, I felt as if I was not alone. I set my suitcase down and went to check the kitchen's water supply. But when I turned back, I was sure my suitcase had moved. Ignoring the unease growing inside me, I brushed it off as my imagination playing tricks on me. That very night, I noticed something strange. As I switched off the lights to sleep, I heard faint whispers echoing from the corner of the room. I turned the lights back on, nothing. The apartment was silent, blaming it on my mind adjusting to a new place. I went back to sleep, but the moment I shut my eyes, the whispers returned, clearer this time. They sounded like hushed voices, murmuring in the darkness. Each passing night, the whispers grew louder. Sometimes, I could hear the soft creaking of footsteps moving through the living room. But whenever I turned the lights on, everything was still. One night, I watched in horror as my bedroom door slowly creaked open, accompanied by an eerie clicking sound, as if someone was trying to enter. As the days passed, more eerie events occurred. One evening, I left my phone charging in the kitchen and returned to find it lying on the floor, the screen still glowing. The refrigerator door was slightly ajar. Though I had not touched it, my nerves were wearing thin. but I convinced myself there had to be a logical explanation. Then the whispers evolved into something else. They no longer stayed in the corners of my room. I started hearing them right next to my ear. Soft murmurs of unintelligible words. One night, I was jolted awake by a loud knock on my bedroom door. My heart pounded as I sat up, listening. Then, another knock, and another. When I finally summoned the courage to open the door, there was nothing but silence and darkness beyond it. Shadows began appearing where there should have been none. The dim glow of the streetlights outside my window revealed movements that I couldn't explain. On one occasion, as I reached for the bathroom door, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror, only it was slightly off. My reflection did not move at the same time as I did. Desperate for answers, I started asking around about the apartment. Mr. Douglas, the building's manager, was reluctant to speak but finally revealed the unsettling past. This place belonged to a woman named Claire. The old man murmured. She lived here alone. One day, she stopped leaving her apartment. Neighbors grew worried, but when the police broke down the door, they found her dead in the bedroom. The strangest thing was the deep, bloody scratches on the walls, as if she had been trying to escape from something invisible. I dug deeper into the apartment's past. It turned out that Claire wasn't the first tenant to meet a grim fate. There had been others, people who mysteriously disappeared, whose names were forgotten over time. The police reports were vague, but one detail remained consistent. All of them reported hearing whispers before they vanished. My nights became unbearable. I dreamed of a woman with long black hair, her face pale and hollow-eyed, standing over my bed, whispering unintelligible words. Every time I woke up, I could feel an icy breath against my skin. The darkness in my room seemed thicker, suffocating. Then came the figures. I would wake up in the middle of the night, feeling something watching me. My closet door, which I always left closed, would be ajar. My bed would feel like it had shifted slightly. I started locking my bedroom door at night, but even that didn't help. One night, I awoke to find the closet door wide open, revealing nothing but darkness inside. The most terrifying incident happened when I woke up paralyzed, unable to move, my chest heavy as if someone was sitting on it. A shadowy figure loomed over me, whispering, its voice rasping and inhuman. My vision blurred, and the last thing I remembered before blacking out was its hand reaching for my face. Determined to prove myself wrong, I set up a camera in my bedroom to capture whatever was happening while I slept. The next morning, reviewing the footage, my hands trembled as I watched. In the dead of night, a shadowy figure stood beside my bed, watching me. Its face was blurred, but as the camera zoomed in, I nearly dropped my laptop. The figure's face, it was mine, but distorted and wrong. Panicking, I grabbed my belongings, determined to leave the apartment that night. But as I packed, a whisper rasped right next to my ear. "Do you think you can leave?" Shaken, I dashed out of the apartment. Running down the dimly lit hallway, I felt something following me, brushing against my shoulder, though I saw nothing. Finally, bursting out onto the street, I gasped for air, my entire body trembling. But then, as I turned back toward the building, my breath caught in my throat. Up in the window of apartment 14, a figure stood watching me, smiling. I fumbled for my jacket pocket, feeling for my keys, just to make sure I had truly left them behind. They were still there. I moved out of town the very next day, never looking back. But the apartment did not remain empty for long. Another tenant arrived soon after, and that night, the whispers began again. Apartment 14 was waiting for its next victim. The abandoned house on Silent Pines Hill. For decades, Silent Pines Hill has been a forgotten place. Nestled far from the bustling city, surrounded by dense forests and winding dirt roads that lead nowhere.
At the highest peak of the hill stands an ancient, abandoned house, its stone walls cracked with age, covered in ivy and decay. No one knows who built it, and no one dares to enter. Locals whisper about the house, saying it is cursed. At night, flickering lights have been seen in its windows, and faint whispers echo from its mold-covered walls. Hunters who have ventured near it have returned pale and trembling, speaking of shadowy figures moving within, vanishing the moment they approached. Stories tell of disappearances. Those who dared to enter the house never came back. Some say they were taken by the spirits that haunt the halls. Others believe something darker lurks in the basement. Something ancient and hungry. The house is said to be alive, its walls breathing, its floors creaking like the bones of the dead beneath them. Legends speak of a gateway hidden beneath the house, a door to something beyond comprehension. Nearly 20 years ago, the Harper family moved to Silent Pines in search of a peaceful life. They purchased the house for an unbelievably low price, dismissing the town's warnings as mere superstition. The first few weeks were uneventful, but soon, the strangeness began. Doors slammed shut on their own. Footsteps creaked from the attic, though no one had ever been up there. Their daughter, Emily, spoke of a woman in white wandering the halls, though no one else could see her. Each night, the family struggled to sleep, plagued by murmurs seeping from the walls and the unsettling feeling of being watched. The disturbances escalated. Objects moved from their places. Shadows lengthened unnaturally. The mirrors in the house started reflecting strange shapes, figures that should not have been there. One evening, Mrs. Harper found herself locked inside the pantry for over an hour, despite the door having no lock. Then, one stormy night, the final horror drove them away. Emily awoke to find a ghostly woman crouched at the foot of her bed, staring at her with hollow, soulless eyes. When she screamed, the entire house seemed to groan, as if awakening from slumber. The walls pulsed, and the whispers turned into shouts. The family fled, never returning, but the house on Silent Pines Hill remained, waiting for its next visitors. Silent Pines is not a place easily found on a map. Those who stumble upon it often do so by accident, as if the town itself calls to them. There have been reports of travelers getting lost in the area, wandering for hours before coming upon the house, as if it had been waiting for them all along. One such traveler was a man named Thomas Everett. He had been driving through the countryside when his GPS malfunctioned, leading him down an unfamiliar dirt road. He had been driving for what felt like hours when he saw it, the house, looming in the darkness like a specter. Curious and unnerved, Thomas decided to investigate. He stepped onto the porch, the wood groaning under his weight. The front door, though closed, creaked open slightly as if inviting him in. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. The furniture was still there, covered in sheets, as if waiting for its owners to return. As Thomas explored, he found strange symbols carved into the walls, their meanings lost to time. Then, he heard it, a voice, whispering his name from the darkness upstairs. He turned to leave, but the door was no longer there. The hallway had stretched, twisting into something unnatural. The whispers grew louder, and when he turned back, he saw them, figures standing at the top of the stairs, watching him with empty eyes. Thomas was never seen again. Despite its reputation, the house has always attracted those who seek the thrill of the unknown. Over the years, urban explorers, paranormal investigators, and reckless teenagers have tried to uncover its secrets. Most left terrified, refusing to speak of what they experienced inside. Some never left at all. One such investigator was Daniel Carter, a documentary filmmaker who specialized in haunted locations. He arrived at Silent Pines with his team, determined to spend the night inside the house. Equipped with cameras, thermal scanners, and recording devices, they entered at dusk, prepared for anything, or so they thought. As the sun dipped below the trees, the house seemed to awaken. The whispers started first, faint, unintelligible murmurs drifting from the darkened hallways. Then came the cold spots, patches of freezing air that made their breath mist in the dim light. Daniel's camera picked up flickering shadows that shouldn't have been there, moving against the walls. The deeper they ventured, the worse it became. One crew member, Lisa, swore she felt a hand grasp her wrist, icy fingers wrapping around her skin. Another, Jason, caught a glimpse of something in the mirror, a reflection that wasn't his own. Then, at midnight, the house attacked. Doors slammed shut, trapping them in the dining room. The temperature plummeted, and the whispers turned into screams. Their cameras malfunctioned, the lights flickered wildly, and then, in the doorway, they saw it, a tall, twisted figure with sunken eyes and a mouth stretched too wide, grinning at them from the shadows. Lisa was the first to run, but she never made it out. The door she tried to open wouldn't budge, and when the others reached her, she was gone. No trace of her remained. Daniel and the rest fled, abandoning their equipment. They never spoke of what happened, only warning others never to enter the house. Lisa was never found. No one knows the true origin of the curse that plagues Silent Pines. Some say it was once a place of dark rituals, that something evil was summoned long ago and never left. Others believe it was built on ancient, sacred land, and that the spirits of the forgotten will never rest. The house still stands, silent and patient, and every so often, another foolhardy soul walks through its doors, never to be seen again. One autumn night, a lone traveler named Mark stumbled upon Silent Pines, seeking shelter from an approaching storm. The town's residents warned him, begged him not to go up the hill. He laughed, dismissing their fears. Hours later, the storm raged through the town. The wind howled like a living thing, rattling the windows of every home. And in the distance, beyond the trees, beyond the blackened sky, a scream rang out from Silent Pines Hill. No one dared to look. Mark was never seen again. The house had claimed another. But the story does not end there. Silent Pines Hill remains, standing in the same darkness, waiting for its next visitor. And if you ever find yourself lost near that desolate place, if you ever hear the whispers in the wind calling your name, turn back before it's too late. Because once you step inside, the house will never let you go. Silent Pines waits, and it is always hungry, and it is watching.